Hello everyone, it's Sean from TaekwondoSean.com, and today we're covering closed-fisted techniques, or Jumeok techniques. Check it out. Alright, so in a previous video, we've already talked about open-handed techniques. Let's talk about the hand knife and the palm strike and all those kinds of things. But in a self-defense situation, lots of people, most people, would probably just bunch up their hands into a fist in order to defend themselves. And they'd be right to do so. If you haven't trained your hand knife, when you bunch up all your muscles and ligaments and everything in the fist and squeeze it tight, it becomes very strong, a very powerful tool. So we want to make sure today we're covering how to do proper Jumeok fist and all the different kinds that we'll cover in the video. All right, so let's learn number one, how to make a good fist. Step number one, attach all your fingers together with your thumb sticking out. Step two, bend your finger knuckles like this, just the knuckles. And then step three, you curl them in. And then step four, you cover the index finger and the middle finger with your thumb, like so. Remember, the thumb, our opposable thumb, is what separates us from many other animals. It's a great evolutionary gift. However, it's not very strong on its own. So if you put your thumb on the inside, you're asking for trouble. So make sure the fist, make sure your thumb is on the outside, on the bottom, locking everything in, and we're good to go. Now make sure your fist shape is also good. Is your fist flat, like this, or is one of your fingers sticking up? There are fists where the finger knuckles stick up, but you're doing it on purpose, and there's a structural way to do it. So if you guys don't have a flat fist, there's a couple ways to fix it. We'll talk about it in the video. Now, the thing that connects your fist to the powerhouse of the body, the arm that's going to give you that thrust power, is this, the wrist. Now the wrist is not very strong on its own either, so we need to make sure it's engaged properly, it's straight, so that we don't have any injuries, all right? We don't want any risky business. So, we're going to make sure our wrist is straight. So we can either go up, down, left, or right. Make sure it's straight like this. So if you were skateboarding, there'd be no ramp, up or down. And then, make sure our wrist is, so our two big knuckles line up with our target. All right? These two ones, they're okay. But these two knuckles, the big ones, they're big and strong. So they'll take the brunt of the force. The front of the fist is called the cheongwan, and this is what will be thrusting towards the target. So just make sure that your wrist is engaged the whole time. Now we got to stretch the wrist and, by attachment, the forearm, because the forearm lends power to the fist. Like we talked about in the open hand strike video, the forearm is what gives your hand strength. So let's do some quick stretches. Please interlock your fingers like this, and then start making circles. One way and the other way. And you can do it as long as you feel a stretch or as long as you think you need to. Now another one we're going to do is we're going to grab our fingertips and pull. We're going to feel a nice stretch here in the forearm. Pull towards you, like so. And then do it on the other hand. You can hold it for as long as you want, as long as you feel a good stretch. And then the opposite way. So my hand was up, now it's down, and then I pull back towards me, like so. And then again on the other side, same thing. All right, and then we're going to twist our wrist as well. So it's a self-defense technique in Taekwondo where I put my thumb in between my pinky and my ring finger knuckle, and I grab with the fingers the trunk of my opposite thumb, like so. And then I twist, twist, twist. Now you don't have to grab it like that. However, it's easy just to grab your whole wrist and twist it, and then twist it the opposite direction as well. And then same thing on the other side. Ring and pinky knuckle, thumb trunk, pull, 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 and then the opposite as well. All right, and then the last stretch we'll do is the prayer stretch. So you put your hands together, and then you slowly lower it until you feel a nice stretch in your forearms. And then you can hold it for a few seconds or as long as you want until you feel a good stretch. And then release. And now we're ready to go. So let's get punching. Our first destination is the 몸통 Jireugi, the straight punch, the most basic punch. You probably learned it on your first day of Taekwondo. Or if you haven't done Taekwondo yet, you're probably gonna learn it on your first day of Taekwondo. So on the human body in the front, we have many vital spots that we can attack. However, the most famous one, the one that we're always punching in Pumse at the beginning, is Myeongchi, your solar plexus. So here's your collarbone, your sternum, and then right below is the solar plexus. Now, if you don't have a ripped six-pack, then that's right above the ripped six-pack. It'll be a nice squishy area right on top of the six-pack and right below the sternum. Now, punching that area will cause your diaphragm to push all the air out, which will cause the opponent to have no air, which means that you have a distinct advantage and you can get away safely. So let's start practicing punching the solar plexus. So with every punch, we start on our belt, on our hip, and then from here, it's going to come forward towards the target. Don't come up, don't go down, straight towards the target. And then as my elbow leaves my body, the fist starts to twist until at the very end, I have a full extension. My shoulder came out about 30 degrees. I punch straight into the target. My two big knuckles, my Chungwan, is punching into the target. And then when I'm doing my second punch, now we get to the meaty stuff. My first punch is going to start to pull back. My second punch is going to start to pull forward. When my fists meet in front of me, they start to twist. And then I have a full extension punch on my left now. And then again, when they meet, start to twist. Good. Make sure you're pulling it all the way back. No chicken wings. And then punch. And then punch. And then punch. Taekwondo gets its power from a torque motion at the very end. So twisting at the end of every motion we do in Taekwondo generates power. Because our creator wasn't very strong himself. General Choi was a very small man. So we want to make sure that we're generating power like him. Because if he versed someone bigger and stronger than him, he could still defeat that person because he knows how to use his body properly. He knows the techniques to generate power even with a small body. For just an instant to be even stronger than his strong opponent. Now, once we know how to do the middle punch, we can also start doing the face punch. So Pumse number 2, another beginner Pumse, the second one, involves a face punch. Now it's going to look very similar. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull the fist back. When they meet, it's going to twist again, but this time the fist is going straight towards the injung, which is your philtrum. I know, some of us didn't actually know what that was in English. All right, so it's your mustache, your philtrum. So what you're doing is you're punching the chungwan, the two big knuckles, straight into the philtrum. Now you want to be careful. If you punch the teeth, ouch. If you punch the nose, it could be okay. But right here, that's the best vital spot right now for that punch. Okay? So when you're doing Pumse number 2, we're doing 얼굴 지르기. Korean is not my first language. Can you tell? 아래 지르기. 얼굴 지르기. 얼굴 지르기. Good. All right. So now we've got our straight punch, our middle punch. We have our face punch. Now we have to do 2 punches. It's called a 두번 지르기. So 두번 지르기 is introduced in the next Pumse. Wow, it seems like we're taking some steps here. So in Pumse number 3, after your front kick, we introduce the double punch, 두번 지르기. So 두번 지르기 punches the solar plexus, the Myeongchi. From here, it's going to be 1, straightforward. Now you need to make the punch so fast that you can pause here for just a moment without making the punch look slow. So it can't be 1, 2. It's got to be 1, 2. It's got to be done in an instant. So make sure when you're doing the 두번 지르기, 1 and then 2 right away. But you can't keep moving the whole time in when you're doing the motion. You have to be able to pause for just a moment and then execute the second punch. Make sure you practice both arms because in the Pumse, it starts with the right and then it starts with the left. Now remember, this punch is punching the same spot. So if you don't pull this one back with the same force that you thrust the other one out, your fists are going to collide, and this happens to everyone at the beginning. So just make sure you keep in mind, be mindful of pulling this fist back at the same speed that you thrust out with the other fist. All right? And I think that's all the basic punches so far. So let's look at some more advanced punches. All right, let's skip a couple of Pumse and go straight into Pumse number 7. In Taekak Chilchang, at the very end, we have a Yok Jireugi, a side punch. So what we're doing is, we've done our single hand knife block, and then as we throw our foot over, we execute a side punch like this. Side punch. So when we're doing a side punch, we're turning our elbow so it goes back behind us, and then we're pushing, we're thrusting still as best we can. Now remember, thrusting forward is very easy for our shoulder and our body to do. But in order to thrust sideways, you need to angle your fist so that it's angling towards the target. So when you're executing the punch, make sure your fist is facing as best you can the target when it starts, And then when it finishes, you're still twisting at the end, and we're punching the solar plexus height. So the same height as our regular 몸통 지르기. All right, now let's skip a little bit more. When we're doing koryo, which is first degree black belt pumse, we have a target punch. So what we've done is we're in a punching stance here, and we block with our single hand knife, and then punching a target. So when you're doing the target punch, it's very important that the punch is fully extended. Make sure we don't measure the punch based on where our hand is. The punch fully extends, and the other hand adjusts to where that fist will end. You'll have to get to know your body really well while you're doing this. Now, another thing to consider when doing this punch, a lot of practitioners have their thumb sticking up when they're doing it because they're thinking so much about making the hand knife, punching the right spot, extending this arm, keeping the body straight. So make sure you remember to keep this thumb tucked in. At the same time, we don't want to wrap, okay? My birthday is April 16th, but it's not my birthday right now, so no wrapping any presents. So make sure, single hand knife block, and then target punch. All right, make sure you can do both sides, because in koryo, of course, just like all pumse, it's symmetrical, so we do both sides. Block, and then punch the blocking hand. What's gonna happen is you're gonna grab the opponent and hold them there while you do your target punch. Now the target punch targets the solar plexus once again, the usual spot, the best vital spot it seems so far. So let's talk about the Jumeok, the flat fist. The flat fist is a very strong technique. You're using the knuckles of these fingers in front, and you're thrusting just like a regular fist. However, because the front of the fist is bigger, it spreads out the damage more, and the front of the fist here on the flat fist is smaller, it concentrates the power more on a vital spot. So a punch can hit, and it'll be thrusting in a big area like a circle, but then the flat fist is more like pinpoint target. So it's really good for hitting the vital spots, and it's more of an advanced technique, because if it's not trained, there's a huge chance that you could break your hand, that you could break your knuckle, that you could hurt yourself. So remember, Taekwondo, you need to train because we're not here to get hurt. We're here to train our bodies to make them stronger, train our minds and our character to become better, and that way we can use it to defend ourselves. So beginners, probably best to stay away from this technique in a self-defense situation until you've trained it enough. So there's a flat fist, the Jumeok. Now we're also going to talk about the knuckle protruding fist, the Jumeok. Now Jumeok is structurally different. Remember at the beginning of the video I was saying that sometimes when some people make a fist, some practitioners, they have a knuckle sticking up like this. This is absolutely not a knuckle protruding fist. There's nothing behind the finger, so when an impact happens, it's just going to push it back, crack the knuckle, even cause some damage. So when you're doing your knuckle protruding fist, here's what you're going to do. You have a fist here, and what you're going to do is you're going to take your middle finger and stick it up, and then you're going to take the other two fingers and you're going to go underneath like so. Now when you're doing this, it means that there's something for this knuckle to fall back on, so it won't go backwards. Okay? So as you can see, we got the two knuckles underneath here like this, and then I put my thumb and wrap it all in. Now when I hit something with my knuckle protruding fist, the knuckle won't go backwards and get hurt, it's going to stay there like this. Now this, because we're putting all the power into one tiny little knuckle, you only want to save it for a vital spot strike. The reason is, if you try to strike some other part of the body or some clothed part or something hard and strong like a board, there's a big chance they're going to hurt this knuckle. This is a very advanced technique, and this is a very pinpointed technique. So there's a big chance of injury if we don't do it properly. So just make sure you guys are training this technique well, and that way you can avoid injury while practicing. We're not trying to win in a self-defense situation. We're just trying not to lose, okay? It's not about a match where you get points and there's a clear winner, clear loser. Both people can lose in a self-defense situation. So what you're trying to do is try not to lose. All right, now we've done all our thrusting punches with the Chungwan, even here with our flat fist. Now we're going to move forward with the back of the strike. So the fist back is called the Jumeok. Now it's very strong. When you're doing your Jumeok, guess what? You're actually not striking too much with the back of the fist. The Jumeok Chigi strikes with the two big knuckles again, so it's kind of like Chungwan. All over again. When you reach forward, you can see my two big knuckles are impacting the target. When I reach forward, my two big knuckles are impacting the target. Now in Pumse, the Jumeok seems to always, at least in the Taekwondo Pumse, the Jumeok always strikes the injum, the philtrum. So make sure your back of a strike is high enough. When you do your back of a strike, it comes from your elbow, from your armpit, and your arm is up here, making a frame, just like in MMA. You have your frame here to protect the strike so it reaches its target. As the fists pass each other, you pull back as you extend. Now this pulling back could also be considered you grab the opponent and you pull them into your strike. Pulling the opponent brings them off balance, and when they're not on balance, their body's first instinct is to try and do anything it can to get back onto balance. So when it's trying to balance itself, it's definitely not going to be working on blocking what your strike is doing. So as you pull the opponent, two things. Pulls them off balance, now they're distracted, and it accelerates them towards your fist. If I'm going 5 kilometers per hour this way, and you're coming at me at 5 kilometers an hour, now my strike has 10 kilometers an hour of power. All right, now we're jumping around with the pumse, but humor me. We're going to jump into pumse number 5. The second motion, down block, and then Jumeok chigi. We're using our hammer fist strike. We're striking the collarbone right here. The collarbone is not that strong. It's really strong structurally when it's together like this. However, when you apply force on one part of the collarbone, they could cause significant damage. So the hammer fist strike, by bunching up, you're using the same part as the hand knife, the sonnar, and then you strike the opponent right here on the collarbone. And it's a very dangerous technique, so be careful with that one. Now, the hammer fist strike is also used in this pumse a second time after you do your Yeopchagi and the Jumeok chigi, but this time you're going sideways. So I have side kicked my opponent. Now, oh, they got side kicked, they're leaning forward like this, and then the hammer fist strike comes out. Now in the pumse you do it at the same time. However, in a self-defense situation, the side kick would happen, they lean forward, and then you hammer fist them in the temple with this part of your fist. I know it doesn't sound very good when I say it like that, but that's what it is. This is a self-defense situation. We're trying not to lose. We're trying not to die. So, hammer fist, very strong. Hammer fist is also a favorite for students and practitioners when they're breaking boards and breaking bricks. It's very potent. We'll talk about strengthening it at the end of the video. All right, so we're back with pumse number 8 now. In pumse number 8, after we do our waist hantar Makki, we turn and we do our tangyo tok Jireugi, which means that a pulling punch. So I'm going to take my opponent, I pull them towards me. As I do, this fist comes from my armpit, under, and as my fists pass each other, they start to twist, and I make sure this fist is at least my jaw height, because I've punched the tok, the jaw. This hand comes back and sits just in front of my elbow, or just in front of my shoulder here, but not resting on it. Make sure it's just in front like this. So again, 1, 2, 3, the fists start to twist, 4 and 5. And there's our tangyo tok chigi, or Jireugi. So make sure we're uppercutting. So if you do this and it's not the jaw height of the opponent, then you have to make sure you raise it up, because this is an uppercut. So make sure you guys look in the mirror when you're doing this technique, and make sure you guys punch high enough. All right, so in the open hand strike video, we talked about strengthening the hand by hitting something hard. Now the fist, no surprises here, it's the exact same method of training. If you want to get a stronger Jumeok, hammer fist, you hit something hard like this, hundreds and thousands of times. Like a Makki wara in Japanese, and in Japan they have the Makki wara, which sit up like this. And then when you hit it, it goes backwards and comes back. And that's a great way to train. Korea also has Makki wara, so you guys can purchase those, or you can make your own, or you can just use something and hit it on the ground as well. Now, this by itself, when it's bare, is really good for strengthening the skin and the outside of the fist. So punching something lightly, hundreds and thousands of times, hammer fisting, all that kind of stuff. So instead, if you guys want to make it a little bit nicer, you guys can wrap your belt around it, and then it becomes a little more soft. So you can really go into it a little bit more force, and then the impact will cause more micro fractures deeper into your hand and your fist, and then it'll heal, and your whole fist will become stronger. So make sure you guys are practicing both the surface, something hard, but also wrap your belt around it, or put a sheet of cloth over top of it, and then strike it a little bit harder to reach in a little bit deeper into the fist. Now, we also talked about the fist shape and how we can fix it. So a lot of us have a finger that's actually sticking up too much. We have no idea how to fix it. So let's step number 1. You can use your hand to do this. Now there might be some popping in the knuckles and everything, and please don't push too hard so you avoid injury. But as soon as you've pushed it in, hopefully now you have a nice shaped fist. Ooh, ah. Now if that doesn't do it, or it only works when you do that, you gotta find something soft. Not as soft as a pillow, something like a square target like this, and then what you do is you place it on the ground and you punch it hundreds of times. And what that's going to do is it's going to hammer the fingers into a good position because your body wants, the path of least resistance. Your body wants to avoid injury, pain, or anything uncomfortable. So if you're punching something hundreds and thousands of times and your index finger keeps wanting to pop up and hit something first, your body's gonna realize that and be like, hey, we don't want this index finger to get hurt anymore. So slowly it'll start to become more of a shape right away. So again, you put it on the ground. And then you punch it hundreds and thousands and millions of times to get really good at punching in Taekwondo. All right, so we've talked about lots of stuff. We've talked about the stretching we can do, how to make the proper fist. We talked about various types of attacks with our closed-handed techniques. Now remember, you also in Taekwondo never start with an attack. This is the martial art with no first strike. This is the martial art where every pumse, every pattern starts with a block, right? So we're trying to hammer fist. We're trying to hammer that into your minds, that Taekwondo is a self-defense martial art. We never strike first. So, just like your fists can attack and strike, and we talked about them all, you can also block with the fist. Now, if you train your hammer fist so well, so strong, that this is like iron, and then somebody goes to punch you, and you middle block, and you use this part of your arm, or even the hammer fist, and you hit their attack, they're gonna be damaged, they're gonna be hurt, and they're gonna be less likely to attack you again. So training your hammer fist, training your forearms, training everything to make your fists and your hand knives stronger helps benefit you both in an attacking way and a defensive way. Because you know what we say, the best defense in Taekwondo is attack and defense at the same time. Anyways, make sure you guys train hard at home, make sure you hit lots of stuff. Don't break anything at your house. I'm sure your parents won't like that. I'm sure your family won't like that. So make sure you guys train hard, and we'll see you guys on the mats.